Hello, today's video is called What is a Spiritual War? Today is September 28, 2021. The agenda for today is background, what is a spiritual war? What can I do? What can we do? First, let's start with a little bit of my personal story. Before March of 2020, I was living in a typical bubble. I was just shopping, working out, working, visiting my family that live overseas, and you can see how happy I was, like here, shopping. Then on March 2020, the magical virus appeared in the world, and I was forced to stay at home, and my mind actually needs a lot of activity, so I started to be unable to work, and I started to read online a lot of things. Some of the things I read was the infamous plan. The plan is nothing different than all the details of where all these activities by the, now I will call them negative oriented people, want to do with us in the planet. By May, I started my channel on YouTube, a channel that does no longer exist because in February of this year actually was pulled down. I had over 150 videos, over 700 hours of work, but it was pulled down because I talk about things that they don't want us to share. 2 weeks ago, I restarted my channel. That's why my channel now has very few videos, but I think they are a little bit more interesting right now than the ones that I used to talk about, because all the things I used to talk about now have come to be. What I wanted to share with you today is that when I read the plan, I really had a hard time, and there was only one thing that would help me through those tough times, and was reading what is called the Law of One. Maybe some of you have heard of it or not, but by synchronicity at the time I was doing translations from English to Spanish about this, and here's a link if you want to go and read the articles. They're extremely interesting, and one of the two topics that are included in the book, this is the original book, I didn't do the translations for this but for the transmissions, but one of the two interesting topics were the densities that are levels of consciousness, and I'll talk about it in a minute, as well as some specific periods of time when we need to move on. And we both, as humans and all entities, need to move on, but most importantly also planets need to move on. So let's talk a little bit about the densities. Here's a very interesting diagram that illustrates a little bit of how it could be interpreted. So in the first density, you see elements and minerals. Second density, plants and animals. Third density is us, organic portals, and we're focused on service, or we can be focused on service to others, so service to self, which means being selfish, only trying to use others and manipulate others to gain our own selfish objectives, or service to others, that is try to lift others through our service, just like you can do, for example, helping others, not necessarily with money but with energy, lifting others. So that's for an example of service to others. Then the fourth density is variable physicality, so it's all those extraterrestrial beings that we have heard of, and they're focused also in either self or others, so that's the commonality between these two groups. Then on the fifth density, you're starting to look into the soul essence, and its individual pure energy, and is purely focused on service. And the sixth density is groups of energies, so you stop being individuals and then you start being more a collective, and is focused on love and service. And this is where Ra, the group of entities called Ra, come and do the transmissions for the book Law of One. And then on the seventh density, you have all awareness, pure energy, and that would be defined as what you and I call God. It's just the essence of everything, and the highest level you can achieve. So the periods of time to move up are the second part that I wanted to talk to you about, and the specific section and the page is outlined here from this original book, the Ra Contact. So what it says there is that every 76,000 years, more or less, 76,000, the planet has to go through a process called the harvest. And the harvest is no more complicated than the separation between the negatively oriented entities and the positive oriented entities that the planet may be holding in that specific period of time. So this is why we hear so many times the battle is already won, because the graduation or harvest will happen independently of whatever people choose to do and make their decision upon. So the lower densities will not be able to be held in this planet anymore. However, we are still in the middle of a spiritual war. So what is a spiritual war? In short, it's a fight for our light. Each one of us, either we believe it or not, we are emitting light all the time. This is what is also talked about in the law of attraction. So we are emitting almost like a frequency. You're emitting your light all the time, depending on your thoughts, your words, and your actions. And certain things will pull you down. So, for example, here you see a person that perhaps is depressed, so the light is dimmer and is less elongated. And then one of the things that I personally think that helps me with my energy is to work out. So you will have an extended light and it will be brighter. So if we express fear, sadness, stress, etc., then your light will be dimmer. And if you do any positive actions, or even, for example, if you meditate, then your light will be brighter. The fight is for our attention. So imagine a scale, and obviously the more amount of people that we have holding light is going to be on this side, and here you're going to have less people holding lower light. So that's the battle, that's the war, that's the whole representation of the spiritual war. It's something we don't see, but it's actually happening. And it's happening in the manner that is illustrated here. All your attention and thoughts could be focused in, let's say, watching TV, which you know is mainly negative, and it actually puts you in a state of stress and makes you anxious and makes you angry and all these things that we know we feel when we watch the news. Or we can do other things when we focus, for example, in helping others or being happy or meditating. That is nothing more complicated than the ability to retain silence in our minds. So when we express these things, then our light will be brighter. Now it's easier within the context of what we just saw. It's easier to understand why there is this fear propaganda, why we're supposed to be away from each other, we're supposed to be fearful of each other, we're supposed to fight against each other, we have to hide our smile, we have to just not be able to connect, we're not supposed to touch each other or hug each other, etc. So all those activities and, quote, rules are simply destined to bring you down, to dim your light, and to lower your overall vibration. What is interesting is the law of one says that both are actually different polarities or states of being. In other words, there is no right or wrong. They're just simply two sides of the same coin. So is the totality of what is. Where this becomes a little bit complex is because it is my understanding that the negatively oriented entities from a fourth density, it's a group of people from, I shouldn't say people, group of entities that are trying to tilt the scale in their favor with tools such as cloning, overtaking bodies, stealing human embryos, engineering bodies, using soulless bodies, etc., to mix these created entities with the overall population and bring our energy down. Of course, this is a thought that is not for everyone. I imagine that many people may not be in agreement with this, and that's totally fine. And this is one of the groups that is part of that fourth density intent, is the Orions, and they wish to create a new race to control. And that's where the injection and the DNA modification actually comes into place. So the video key patent that was removed from YouTube, but now is available on Rumble. You can find it either way, through YouTube or Rumble, but it's down from YouTube. I talk about the DNA modification and how it exists a patent for many, many years. So additionally, there is another tactic that is related to this phrase that you may have heard many times, that the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. In my opinion, it's actually not true. The biggest trick would have been make us believe that it's trendy and friendly and harmless, and you see series and TV shows like this, and you see a lot of videos, a lot of songs. Even there is a dating site, Match.com. By the way, I'm not there for obvious reasons. Their TV ad actually shows that you are having the perfect match between a human and this. So I don't know what that is about, but you can see that they're just trying to manipulate your perception of reality. So the most important section is, what can I do? What can we do in the presence of this? The most powerful tool you have to protect your light is to raise your vibration. And many people talk about this, but I wanted to share with you some of the tools that work for me of how to raise my vibration. Walking in nature is very powerful, particularly when you leave the phone behind. Kindly do a little bit of research of what EMR means. And it's electromagnetic radiation that your phones are emitting every time that are beside you. So please read about it, because when you leave it behind, it's actually very beneficial for your health. Say something beautiful and positive to someone you don't know or someone you know superficially. I find that very helpful for raising my vibration. Making a list of things you feel grateful for is also very good. Pray or meditate, and sending white light to our planet, to the people you love, to the people that you don't love is even more important. Do anything that brings joy to yourself. Work out, cook, whatever. It's something that you feel happy about is very, very useful. And another tool that I use a lot is to minimize my screen time, particularly reading or hearing negative news. So it's something that will raise your vibration. Of course, by all means, keep on doing it, but definitely this is helpful as well. Protect your light and stand for what you believe in. Be fearless. Just know you are eternal. Thank you very much.